The mysterious visitor. The hum of the Endurance was constant, a steady rhythm that echoed through the vast corridors of the massive warship. Lieutenant James Carter, ever the steady leader, sat alone in the dimly lit observation deck, staring out at the endless expanse of the cosmos. For the past few days, he had been unable to shake the feeling that something was amiss. Something was calling out to him from the depths of space. He couldn't explain it, but the nagging sensation had only grown stronger as they ventured further into the unknown. The Endurance had been traveling for weeks on its exploratory mission, a journey that took them farther than any human ship had ever gone. They were nearing the edge of the galactic fringe, a region where even the bravest explorers hesitated to tread. There were rumors of strange phenomena, whispers of alien civilizations that defied all understanding. But there was no time for such fantasies. The crew had a job to do, and Carter had to stay focused. As he watched the stars flicker in the distance, something shifted in the atmosphere. A sudden crackle over the intercom startled him, and he swiftly turned to the console beside him. A distorted voice, unfamiliar yet oddly compelling, filled the room. The words were faint, almost imperceptible, but they sent a chill down his spine. "Do you remember me, human?" The voice seemed to reverberate in the back of his mind, as though it was more than just a transmission. It was an invitation. His pulse quickened. Carter quickly reached for the controls, scanning the signal for its origin. But the source was impossible to trace. It was as if the voice had come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. He keyed in the communication panel, hoping to regain control of the situation. "This is Lieutenant James Carter of the Endurance. Who's there?" His voice echoed slightly, a nervous edge creeping in. There was no reply. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours, until Lieutenant Aria Stevens entered the room. She immediately sensed the tension in the air, her eyes narrowing as she approached. "Something wrong, sir?" she asked, her voice calm yet laced with concern. I'm not sure," Carter replied, still staring at the empty stars outside. "I heard something, a voice calling to me. But the signal, it's gone. Nothing on the scanners." Aria studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. "Sir, with all due respect, maybe you need some rest. It's been a long journey. We're heading into uncharted space. Your mind could be playing tricks." James nodded, but the unease gnawed at him. He was no stranger to the psychological toll of space exploration, but this felt different. The voice was too real, too vivid to dismiss as a hallucination. Just as he was about to suggest that they return to their duties, a sudden jolt shook the ship. The entire Endurance shuddered, and the lights flickered. Carter grabbed onto the console, his mind racing. Was this the anomaly they had been warned about? "Status report," he barked into the comm. "We've hit some sort of gravitational distortion, Lieutenant." Aria responded quickly. "But the readings don't match anything we've encountered before. It's like we're being pulled toward something." Before Carter could respond, another flash of static filled the communication panel, followed by the same voice, now louder, clearer, and more urgent. "You cannot run from your past. We are coming." This time, the voice was unmistakable, and it carried a weight of finality. The hairs on the back of Carter's neck stood on end. He could feel his heart rate spike. Something was out there. Something that knew him, that wanted him to remember. "Prepare the crew for emergency protocols," Carter ordered, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts racing through his mind. "We need to be ready for whatever comes next." Aria nodded, but before she could leave to carry out the orders, the ship suddenly lurched violently. The observation deck was plunged into darkness, the soft hum of the ship's systems grinding to a halt. For a moment, all was silent. Then, in the distance, just beyond the viewport, a strange light appeared. It shimmered like a star, but pulsed with an eerie, unnatural glow. As it grew brighter, Carter's breath caught in his throat. It wasn't a star. It was a ship, something alien. And it was getting closer. The voice returned, this time with a sense of finality. "You are not alone, human." The Endurance had come to a stop, caught in the grip of a force greater than anything they had prepared for. The unknown visitor was drawing near. Carter had no choice but to face it head-on, whatever it was. And in that moment, he realized that the story of humanity's survival wasn't just about the challenges of space. This was something personal. This was a reckoning. The universe had just changed, and Carter had a sinking feeling that his past was about to catch up with him in ways he never could have imagined. Echoes of the past. The Endurance drifted in an eerie stillness, surrounded by a sea of darkness. The ship's systems had gone silent, the low hum of its engines now replaced by an unsettling void. Lieutenant James Carter stood at the observation window, staring at the pulsating light that now loomed before them. It was no longer just a distant star, but a ship, a massive alien vessel that seemed to defy all human understanding. The ship appeared to be constructed of materials that didn't belong to any known species. Its sleek, curved surface shimmered with an otherworldly glow, reflecting the void of space in ways that made it seem both impossibly distant and eerily close at the same time. Carter's gaze fixed on the vessel, as if drawn by some invisible force, and for a moment he couldn't tear his eyes away. The strange light pulsed again, brighter this time, almost as though it were communicating, sending out some kind of signal. Behind him, Aria Stevens moved swiftly to the control panel. "Lieutenant, I'm trying to regain control of the ship's systems," she said, her voice tense. "But the disturbance is interfering with everything. We're stuck in its gravitational pull." Carter nodded, though his mind was racing in a different direction. The voice, the one that had called to him, it still echoed in his mind. "You are not alone, human." He knew there was a connection between this alien ship and whatever had caused him to feel watched, to feel like his past was reaching out from the darkness of space. But how? Why? "Stay focused, Aria," he said, trying to shake off his growing sense of unease. "Get us back on track. We need to be ready when they board." The rest of the crew had gathered in the command center, their faces filled with confusion and concern. Carter could sense their anxiety, the same unease that had been gnawing at him. As the leader of this mission, he was responsible for them, and he knew he had to remain calm for their sake. But deep down, he knew that nothing could prepare them for what was about to unfold. As he turned to face the crew, he noticed something strange. One of the crew members, Lieutenant Marcus Grant, was staring at the communication panel with wide eyes. The light from the alien ship reflected in his pupils, making his gaze seem almost unnatural. "Lieutenant Grant, what's going on?" Carter asked, his voice sharp. Grant didn't respond at first, his eyes glued to the panel as though he were waiting for something. Then, slowly he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I've seen this ship before." The words hit Carter like a punch to the gut. "What do you mean? How could you have seen it before? No one's ever been this far out into the null expanse." Grant turned to face Carter, his face pale and drawn. "I don't know how to explain it, sir, but there's something familiar about it, something old. I remember it from a dream that felt more like a memory." Carter's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't possible. He had known Marcus for years, and he was a seasoned officer, not someone given to irrational thoughts. "What are you saying, Grant? Are you telling me you've seen this ship in a dream?" Grant nodded slowly. "It's hard to describe, but when I first saw the ship on the scanners, it triggered something in me. It was like a flash, a moment of clarity. I saw it in my dream. The same shape, the same glow, and there was a voice calling to me, just like you heard." The room fell silent. The implications of what Grant was saying sent a ripple of unease through the crew. Could it be that this ship wasn't just an unknown alien craft? Could it be connected to them? Something from their past? Carter's mind spun with questions, but there was one thing he knew for certain. They weren't alone in the galaxy, and whatever the ship was, it had come for them. Before he could respond, the communication panel buzzed to life again. And once more, that haunting voice filled the room. It was unmistakable now, a familiar presence that sent a chill down Carter's spine. "You are not alone, Lieutenant Carter," the voice said, its tone deep and resonant. "I have been waiting for you." Carter's blood ran cold. How did it know his name? "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice steady but his hands trembling slightly. "What do you want with us?" The voice didn't answer immediately. Instead, a strange noise filled the calm, a low hum that seemed to reverberate in the air around them. It was like the sound of a distant engine, something ancient and powerful. As the hum grew louder, Carter felt an overwhelming sense of déjà vu wash over him, as though this moment had happened before. He shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts, but the sensation was persistent. "You've forgotten," the voice finally replied. "But I remember. I remember everything." The word sent a jolt through Carter's chest. Forgotten. What could this voice mean? He searched his memory, but he couldn't recall any previous encounters with an alien species, let alone one that could speak with such authority. And yet, deep within him, there was a nagging feeling that this wasn't the first time he had heard these words. "Why are you here?" Carter asked, his voice growing firmer, though his confusion deepened. "You were never meant to forget," the voice said cryptically, "but you have. And now, I must remind you of your legacy." "Legacy?" Carter repeated, his mind racing. What could this possibly mean? The crew was silent, all eyes on him as the ship continued to drift, caught in the gravity of the alien vessel. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than anything they could have prepared for. As the seconds stretched into what felt like an eternity, Carter's thoughts flashed back to his own past, to his early days in the fleet, to the choices he had made, and to the missions that had shaped him into the man he was today. But there was something missing, something he couldn't place, a fragment of his past that had been locked away, buried deep within him. The voice seemed to sense his inner turmoil. "You will remember soon enough," it said, its tone both soothing and ominous. "But for now, you must wait." And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the transmission cut off, leaving an oppressive silence in its wake. The crew exchanged worried glances, unsure of what to do next. Carter stood motionless, his mind in a whirlwind. What legacy? What was it that he had forgotten? And why had this alien vessel come to him now? As the crew scrambled to regain control of the ship, Carter's thoughts lingered on the voice, on the strange feeling that his past was somehow intertwined with this alien presence. Whatever was happening, he knew one thing for certain. Their journey had just begun, and the mysteries of the universe were about to reveal themselves in ways they couldn't possibly comprehend. The stakes were higher than ever, and the unknown was closing in fast. The awakening of forgotten truths. The dark void outside the Endurance's observation deck had grown even more unnerving, the alien vessel looming closer now, its pulse matching the rhythm of Carter's racing heartbeat. The crew was on edge, their every move charged with a nervous energy that filled the entire command center. Carter stood near the main control panel, his eyes locked on the faintly glowing shape of the alien ship. His thoughts were tangled, unable to make sense of the strange encounter. The voice had faded, but its words continued to echo in his mind like a haunting refrain. "You will remember soon enough." How close are we to regaining control? Carter asked Aria, trying to focus on something tangible, something he could understand. Aria was at her console, fingers flying over the controls as she worked furiously to bypass the disruption the alien ship was causing. "I'm doing everything I can, sir. The ship's systems are still compromised. The gravitational anomaly is messing with our engines and power systems. We can't move until we get a better reading." A chill ran down Carter's spine. The idea that they were stuck here, in the grip of an alien force they didn't understand, was unsettling to say the least. The Endurance, humanity's pride, felt suddenly small and fragile in the face of the unknown. But Carter couldn't afford to show weakness. Not now. Not with everything at stake. He glanced over at Lieutenant Grant, who was still standing in the corner, lost in thought. His face was ashen, his eyes distant, as though the voice he had heard had reached deep into him, dredging up something from his past, something none of them could see. "Grant," Carter called, his voice steady but firm. "What's going on? You've been quiet ever since that transmission. Talk to me." Grant's eyes snapped to Carter, as if he had only just realized he was being addressed. He took a slow breath, shaking his head as if trying to clear a fog from his mind. "I don't know how to explain it, sir," Grant muttered, his voice low and strained. "But I feel different. It's like the moment that voice spoke, something inside me woke up. Something I didn't know was there." "What do you mean, woke up?" Carter asked, his brow furrowing. "What are you trying to say?" Grant hesitated, looking down at his hands as though unsure whether to speak the words he had been holding back. "I've been having dreams. Not like normal dreams, but memories. They're vivid, more like fragments of another life. Things I shouldn't know, places I've never been, people I'd never met. But they feel real. And now, with the ship here, I think those dreams were a warning. A warning about this." The crew fell silent. Grant's words hung in the air, heavy and full of implication. It wasn't just Carter who had felt the pull of the unknown. It wasn't just the voice calling out to him. They were all affected, all connected somehow. And whatever was happening, whatever force was drawing them in, was far more than they could understand. "We're not the first humans to encounter this ship, are we?" Carter asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The thought had been nagging at him ever since Grant's strange admission. His gut told him there was a connection, but he needed confirmation. Grant's expression darkened, his jaw tightening. "No, sir. We're not. I've seen this ship before, not just in my dreams, but in historical records, in classified files. I thought it was just a myth, a legend. But I guess I was wrong. This ship, this race, they were the first to ever leave Earth. Thousands of years ago, before we ever set foot on another planet." The room grew colder as Grant spoke, the weight of his words sinking in. Carter stared at him, disbelief and confusion swirling in his chest. "You're telling me we're dealing with something that's been around longer than we have? Something that's been waiting for us?" Grant nodded gravely. "Exactly. And I think this ship, this species, had something to do with the first human colonization efforts. I think they were our mentors, or maybe something more. They didn't just disappear. They went underground, hiding in the dark corners of the galaxy, waiting for the right moment." Carter felt a sense of vertigo wash over him, as if the very foundation of everything he knew was shifting beneath his feet. Could it be true? Could humanity's first steps into the stars have been guided by beings like these? And if so, what did that mean for them now? Were they merely pawns in a cosmic game they didn't understand? Before Carter could voice his thoughts, the intercom crackled to life again. This time, the voice that echoed through the speakers was different. It was clearer, more focused, as though the alien presence was finally speaking directly to them. "You are more than you realize, human," the voice said, its tone both soothing and threatening. "You have been marked. Your history is entangled with mine, and your future is bound to it as well. You cannot escape what is written in the stars." Carter's heart raced. The voice spoke of fate, of something that had already been decided. There was no room for doubt now. The alien ship had a deep connection to humanity's past, and it was here to make them remember something they had long since forgotten. "Why now?" Carter demanded, his voice strong despite the tremor he felt inside. "Why are you coming for us now? What do you want?" The voice lingered for a moment before answering. "I do not come for you, Lieutenant Carter. I come for all of you. I come to fulfill the promises made long ago." At that moment, the lights in the control room flickered and dimmed, and the entire ship seemed to groan in protest. The alien vessel outside pulsed brighter, its energy reaching out like an invisible hand, drawing them closer. Carter's mind raced, but one thought stood out above the rest. This was no coincidence. This was fate. And whatever was coming, whatever this alien species had in store for them, they were inextricably linked to it. "We've got to move, sir," Arya shouted, snapping him from his thoughts. "The ship's systems are starting to come back online, but we can't wait any longer." Carter turned toward the crew, his resolve hardening. "Prepare for contact. Whatever happens next, we face it together. No matter what this ship wants, we will not back down." The crew quickly went to work, but Carter couldn't shake the feeling that the universe was shifting around them, that they were about to uncover a secret so powerful it could change everything they knew about their place in the cosmos. Whatever the alien race wanted, they were ready to find out, whether they were prepared or not. A revelation in the void. The tension aboard the Endurance was palpable. The crew had braced themselves for something extraordinary, but nothing could have prepared them for the profound encounter that lay ahead. The alien ship, now fully visible in the viewport, pulsed with an otherworldly energy. It was a presence that seemed to reach out to them, not just through its light, but through something deeper, something primal. Lieutenant James Carter stood before the command console, staring at the approaching vessel with a mixture of awe and fear. The voice had returned, whispering in his mind, and the weight of its words seemed to grow heavier with each passing moment. "You have been marked. Your history is entangled with mine. Your future is bound to it as well." What did it mean? Carter had spent his entire career exploring the unknown, facing danger head-on, but this was different. This was not an enemy to defeat or a mystery to solve. This was a reckoning, one that seemed to be pulling at the very fabric of his identity, unearthing forgotten truths that had been buried long ago. "Status report, Area," Carter said, his voice steady but his mind racing. Arya Stevens was already at the console, her fingers flying over the controls as she worked to restore full functionality to the ship's systems. Her brow was furrowed, her expression tight with concentration. "We're still in a gravitational lock, Lieutenant. No propulsion, no way to break free. The ship's systems are stabilizing, but it's taking longer than expected. We won't be able to move until we regain full control." Carter's eyes flicked to the viewport, where the alien ship was now impossibly close. It was as though it had been watching them the entire time, waiting for this exact moment. Carter knew there was no escaping it. The voice had made that clear. They were meant to face this now. "How much longer until we're free of this anomaly?" He pressed, his gaze unblinking. Arya hesitated. "A few minutes at most, sir, but I can't guarantee it. If we can't break free, the ship will be pulled into its gravity well. We might get stuck." Carter's jaw tightened. Being trapped in the gravitational pull of an alien vessel, of an unknown, potentially hostile force, was the last thing they needed. But the voice had already hinted at something more. This wasn't a typical encounter. This wasn't about survival alone. This was about something much bigger than just the Endurance and its crew. "Everyone prepare for the worst," Carter said, his voice low but resolute. "If we're going to face whatever this ship wants, we'll do it on our terms. Arya, keep me posted. The rest of you, stay alert." The crew acknowledged him with murmurs of affirmation, but Carter couldn't shake the feeling that whatever awaited them wasn't something they could simply fight off or escape. The alien vessel's presence was far too powerful, too calculated. It wasn't trying to destroy them. It was trying to make them remember. Minutes passed in agonizing silence. The ship continued to shudder under the pressure of the anomaly. The voice, which had been a constant whisper in Carter's mind, grew louder, stronger. "You are not ready, Lieutenant Carter, but it is time to face the truth. You cannot hide from what you have forgotten." Carter pressed his palm to his forehead, feeling a pulse of warmth that spread through his body. The ship, the voice, the memories, they were all coming together in a way that defied comprehension. His mind raced, and then it hit him. Something buried deep within his subconscious, something he had never considered before. He wasn't just facing an alien presence. He was facing his own history, his own past. His connection to this alien species was more personal than he could have ever imagined. "Sir," Grant's voice broke through Carter's thoughts, sharp with urgency. "The ship, it's light. It's getting brighter. It's almost like it's—" The words died in his throat as the alien vessel emitted a blinding flash of light, filling the room with an intense glow. For a moment, everything was pure white, overwhelming in its intensity. The crew shielded their eyes, but Carter didn't look away. He knew this wasn't just a light show. This was the moment. The ship's systems flickered, and the voice, the same voice that had haunted Carter's thoughts, filled the command center once more. But this time, the words were different. They were not just an echo in his mind. They were real, spoken aloud, resonating in the very air around him. "You will remember," the voice declared, firm and unwavering. "You are the key to everything. Your legacy is entwined with mine, and you will not escape what is destined." The flash of light dimmed, and in its wake, the Endurance felt different. The ship groaned as though awakening from a long slumber, its systems coming back online in a rush. But it wasn't just the ship that had changed. Something deep within Carter had shifted as well. A sharp pain coursed through his skull, and for a brief moment, the room around him dissolved. His vision blurred, and then, through the haze, memories began to flood back. Memories not of his life as a soldier, but of something older, something ancient. He was no longer standing on the Endurance. He was standing on a foreign world, surrounded by beings unlike any he had seen before. Tall and ethereal, their skin glowing faintly, their eyes glowing with a mixture of gold and violet. They spoke in a language that felt as though it was not spoken with words, but with thoughts. Direct, immediate, and profound. Carter stumbled back, his breath catching in his throat as the memories came crashing down. No, this can't be real. But it was. These beings, these aliens, had been there before, long before humanity had ever set foot in space. They had shaped his past, shaped his very existence in ways he couldn't begin to understand. The voice returned, but now it was clearer, stronger, as though it was coming from within his own mind. "It is time to remember, Lieutenant Carter. You are one of us. And it is time to awaken the power within you." As Carter struggled to regain his bearings, the room around him flickered again. His crew, his ship, it was all fading into the background. What he saw now was something far more important. It was the moment of his true awakening, and the alien ship that had drawn them here was not just an observer, it was the catalyst. "We have been waiting for you," the voice said, its tone both familiar and terrifying. "The time has come to fulfill the pact, Carter. You must awaken your legacy." Carter opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. He was no longer sure what to say or even if he was in control of his own mind anymore. The memories continued to flood in, drowning him in their intensity, as the reality of his connection to this alien race became undeniable. The truth beneath the stars. The Endurance hung motionless in space, tethered to the alien vessel by an invisible force. For the crew, every minute felt like an eternity, as the reality of their situation became more overwhelming. Lieutenant James Carter stood at the helm, his hands gripping the console as his mind raced. The truth he had begun to uncover, the truth about his own past, was a weight he couldn't escape, no matter how hard he tried. The alien ship outside pulsed with a constant, steady glow, as if it were alive, watching, waiting. He could still feel the reverberation of the voice in his mind, the words it had spoken echoing in his thoughts. "You are one of us. The time has come to awaken your legacy." The flood of memories, visions of beings unlike any he had ever encountered, refused to leave him. These memories were not his own, yet they felt more real than anything in his own life. He wasn't just facing an alien species. He was facing a past that had been buried in the recesses of his mind for far too long. "Sir," Aria's voice broke through his reverie, bringing him back to the present. We're approaching the ship's docking bay. It's huge, bigger than anything we've seen. We'll have to board." Carter turned to face her, his mind still reeling from the revelations, but he couldn't afford to dwell on them now. This wasn't about him anymore. This was about the Endurance and the crew who had trusted him to lead them through the unknown. If this was truly humanity's moment of reckoning, they had to face it together. "Prepare the crew," Carter said, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "We're going in. Whatever's waiting for us on that ship, we'll face it head-on." As Arya moved to relay the orders, Carter's gaze drifted back to the viewport. The alien ship loomed larger now, its surface sleek and black, as though it had been forged from a material that defied the very nature of space. The docking bay, a massive opening on the side of the vessel, seemed to be pulling them in. Carter could feel the gravitational force, subtle yet undeniable, drawing the Endurance closer. He didn't need to be told. He already knew that whatever awaited them aboard that ship would alter the course of humanity's future. It wasn't just about survival. It was about understanding who they truly were and where they came from. The crew prepared in silence, the tension palpable as they suited up for the impending boarding mission. Each member had a different reaction to the unknown ahead. Some were eager to discover the truth, others terrified of what might be revealed. But Carter had seen fear in many forms, and he knew that this was different. They weren't facing a hostile force. They were facing something that could not be categorized as friend or foe. It was something ancient, something that had been waiting for them. "Everyone ready?" Carter asked, looking around at his team. His words were strong, but beneath the surface, the uncertainty was there. They all knew that what lay ahead could change everything. No one spoke. They didn't need to. The weight of the moment was enough. Arya checked her weapon one last time, her face set in a determined expression. "Ready, sir." Grant, still visibly shaken from his earlier revelations, stood by the door, staring at the alien ship. His gaze was distant, almost lost. Carter could tell that whatever he had experienced, it had changed him in ways that none of them could fully understand yet. "It's time," Carter said, the finality in his voice leaving no room for hesitation. The doors to the Endurance opened, revealing the stark void between the ship and the alien vessel. The docking bay on the alien ship was now in clear view. A massive ramp extended from the opening, glowing with an ethereal light that beckoned them forward. Carter led the way, his heart pounding as he stepped onto the ramp. The air around them was thick with energy, charged with something that defied description. It wasn't like the sterile atmosphere of a human spacecraft. This was something else entirely, something that resonated on a deeper level, as if the very air was alive. As they crossed the threshold into the alien ship, a strange hum filled the air, vibrating through their bones. The walls of the docking bay were smooth and dark, like polished obsidian, and the floor beneath their feet was soft, almost organic in texture. Carter's boots made no sound as they walked. It was as if the ship itself was holding its breath, waiting for them to make the next move. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from the shadows at the far end of the bay. The crew froze, their weapons instinctively raised. But the figure didn't move to attack. It simply stood there, watching them with eyes that glowed with an eerie violet hue. The figure was tall, almost impossibly so, its body draped in a flowing cloak that shimmered in the dim light. The figure spoke, its voice soft yet commanding, and Carter recognized the accent instantly. It was the same voice that had haunted his mind, the same voice that had whispered through the communication system. "You have come," the figure said, its words resonating in the air. "At last, you remember." Carter's heart skipped a beat as he stepped forward, trying to steady his breath. This was the moment when everything would change. The voice, the figure, the ship. They were all part of something much bigger than he could have ever imagined. And in this moment, standing before the unknown, Carter realized the truth. He wasn't just a soldier. He wasn't just a leader. He was something far more important. "You are ready," the figure said again, its glowing eyes locking onto Carter's. You have always been ready. And now, the time has come to fulfill your destiny. The words hit Carter like a physical blow. Destiny. It wasn't just a word. It was a promise that had been made long ago. And now it was his turn to face it. Whatever it was, whatever this alien race had in store for them, it was here. And there was no turning back. Carter's mind whirled as the figure stepped forward, the eerie light surrounding it casting long shadows across the bay. He knew this moment would define everything. But the questions flooded his mind. Who were these beings? What had they been waiting for? And most importantly, what role did he play in all of this? "Welcome home," the figure said, and in that moment, Carter felt the weight of those words settle deep into his soul. He wasn't just on an alien ship. He was standing at the threshold of something ancient, something that had been waiting for humanity to awaken. The time had come, and everything, his past, his present, his future, was about to collide. The legacy awakened. The figure in the dimly lit docking bay moved with an eerie grace, its presence commanding the attention of everyone in the crew. The walls of the alien ship, now teeming with a strange energy, seemed to pulse with every step it took. Carter stood frozen, his mind struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what was unfolding before him. The voice that had once whispered in his thoughts now resonated in his chest, as though the alien ship itself was speaking directly to his soul. "Welcome home." The figure's eyes, glowing with an ethereal violet light, fixed on Carter with an intensity that seemed to pierce through his very being. He had heard these words before, in his dreams, in flashes of memory that had been buried for years. "You have come." It was as though the very fabric of his existence had been leading him to this moment. He had always felt like there was something more, some greater purpose that he couldn't quite grasp. But now, standing here on this alien vessel, he realized it was more than a feeling. It was the truth. "Who are you?" Carter finally managed to ask, his voice sounding more uncertain than he would have liked. The crew behind him stood tense, weapons still raised, though there was no immediate threat. They, too, felt the weight of the moment pressing down on them, a tension so thick it was almost suffocating. The figure remained silent for a moment, as if weighing the significance of Carter's question. Then it spoke, its voice soft, yet imbued with an ancient power that seemed to echo through the very walls of the ship. "We are the architects of your destiny," the figure said, its voice both comforting and foreboding. "We were the first to guide your kind, long before your ancestors even learned to walk the stars. We seeded the beginnings of your civilization, shaping the course of your history. And now, it is time for you to awaken the legacy that has lain dormant within you." Carter's heart raced. Architects of humanity's destiny. It was a claim so outlandish, so impossible, that it defied every belief he had ever held. The idea that these beings, these aliens, had shaped the very foundation of human civilization was staggering. He looked at his crew, searching for any sign that they, too, were hearing the same impossible words. Grant, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and disbelief, was the first to speak. "But how? How could this be true? We've never seen anything like this before. We're just humans. We figured it out on our own." The figure tilted its head slightly, as if considering the question with profound understanding. "You are human," it said softly, "but you are also something more. You are the culmination of everything we have created, everything we have left behind. The spark of your species is no accident. You are connected to the stars, to us, in ways you do not yet understand." Carter swallowed hard, his thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and revelation. "What are you saying?" he asked, though part of him already feared he knew the answer. The figure stepped closer, and the air around them seemed to crackle with energy. It extended a long, slender hand, palm facing upward. The light that emanated from it was soothing, yet powerfully intense. "You carry within you the memory of what once was," it explained, "the ability to unlock the potential that has been dormant for millennia. Your ancestors were not the first to journey through the stars. You, Carter, are the one who will awaken the knowledge that lies within. As the words hung in the air, Carter's vision blurred for a split second. Images flashed in his mind, flashes of vast alien cities, of worlds teeming with life and energy, and of a race so advanced that their understanding of the universe seemed almost limitless. But there, in the midst of it all, he saw himself, not as the lieutenant of the Endurance, but as something else. Someone else. He saw a version of himself, younger, standing in front of a council of beings like the one before him. He could feel the weight of their gaze, the weight of their expectations. He wasn't just a soldier. He wasn't just a leader. He was something more, a conduit for a knowledge he had yet to fully comprehend. His breath caught in his throat as the vision dissolved, and he found himself standing once more in the docking bay, staring at the figure before him. The truth, no, the reality, of what was unfolding was settling into his mind with a force he could not resist. "You are our legacy," the figure continued, its voice now a low hum. "The time of your awakening has come. You will be the one to lead your kind into the future, to unlock the power that was hidden within you, within all of humanity, from the very beginning." The crew stood motionless, every one of them caught in the gravity of the moment. They were not just explorers. They were the inheritors of something far older and more complex than they could have ever imagined. The alien ship, its eerie light illuminating the bay, was not a threat. It was a doorway, a gateway to something beyond their understanding. "But why me?" Carter asked, his voice filled with a mix of confusion and awe. "Why am I the one? I'm just a soldier, just a man doing his job." The figure's glowing eyes softened, almost as if it were saddened by Carter's words. "Because, Lieutenant Carter, you have always been ready. The spark has always been there, waiting for the moment to ignite. The others may not realize it yet, but they too carry the same potential. But you are the one who will lead them to the truth." Carter closed his eyes, the weight of the figure's words pressing down on him. He was no longer just a soldier. He wasn't even just a leader. He was part of something far greater, something that stretched across time and space, bound by a legacy that had been hidden away, waiting for the right moment. And now, that moment had arrived. He opened his eyes and looked at the figure once more. "What do I need to do?" The figure nodded slightly, as though acknowledging Carter's readiness. "You must embrace your legacy. The path forward will not be easy, but you will not walk it alone. Together, you and your crew will unlock the knowledge buried deep within the stars. You will understand your true purpose." Carter's heart swelled with a mixture of fear and anticipation. He had no idea what was coming next, what this legacy entailed, or how it would change everything he knew. But in that moment, he knew one thing for certain. Humanity's journey into the stars was only beginning, and he was going to lead them into a future they could never have imagined. As the figure stepped back, the light in the docking bay seemed to grow brighter, more intense. The walls pulsed with energy, and Carter felt a shift in the air, as if the very essence of the ship was alive and waiting for them to take the next step. "We will begin," the figure said, "and through you, humanity will remember." With that, the crew of the Endurance prepared to embrace the legacy that had always been waiting for them, the truth hidden within the stars.